This is our agenda. It's not really true because we can't remember what this one is, so we're not going to do it. Sounds good. Yeah, right. Doesn't that sound great? Get excited for the last one because this is what this is for. I didn't just like shove a piece of paper in your faces. But so for the Project Expo prep, essentially what I want to do is Friday we're going to have our Project Expo. All the project teams are going to be there explaining their projects. So I thought this would be kind of a cool opportunity to do like a mock Project Expo. So essentially a couple team members can come up here. Their poster will be on the board and essentially, pretend a couple people or 16 people walk up to you and ask what your project's about. Kind of like a little elevator speech, and here's what my project's about, and then take a couple questions, and maybe that way you'll be less nervous or more prepared for Friday, and also hopefully get some of you excited for Friday, because I know we are. But so we'll get started with that. And I think Chris is first and last, so don't get too excited.
Okay, so this is the project we're calling Campus Beta. We realized there was a car in the woods. We didn't want there to be a car in the woods, so we went in and tried to get it out of the woods. This is how it started in September. By October, the front half was missing, and by November, most of it was missing. So we're doing good. Yes, question.
What are you planning on doing with the current parts?
Well, we're trying to make sure that we minimize environmental contamination by disposing them in an ethical manner. So basically, we're handing it off to FMS, letting them deal with it.
Assuming I don't go to RIT and I'm just the general public person who going to the project next up, what is FMS?
Sorry, FMS is facilities management here at RIT. So they're the ones who take care of the grounds and most other things. Yes.
What are you doing now that it's snowing?
Crying. So after it snowed, we're kind of blocked from doing any more work. So what you see here is basically how we left it. Unfortunately, now that we can't see the smaller pieces, we can't really pick them up. Another problem is that as it started to get into fall, the dry season here in Rochester stopped being a thing. And we had to build a couple of bridges through the woods, and that was when there was land. So it's getting progressively more and more difficult to get back there, as you might expect. So we are hoping to get back there and finish up if we get a small period without snow. Usually there's a period in February for like 2 days where it's 90 degrees. So we can do it then. And that's sort of our plan. We don't really have,
Are there more areas on campus you plan to clean up?
Well, not this semester, but we would love to do more. Basically, anywhere you look, RIT's campus, you can find some sort of terrible environmental catastrophe. So, campus crime. So we're gonna go and try to clean up as much of it as we can. Of course, for most of the semester, it was just me and Olivier back there. So we're hoping to get more people, but we'll do what we can. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
How did you find out it was a 1971 Chevrolet Vega?
That is an excellent question, and actually I'll have props on Friday, but so we found like a little nameplate that says this is a 1971 Chevrolet Vega. Yeah, and actually if you come to our table, you'll get to see one of the coolest artifacts we found underneath the car, and I'm not going to spoil the surprise now. You're going to have to talk to me then. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
So how much of what you found is actually recyclable?
A surprising amount of it is recyclable. So most of the frame is aluminum and steel. So we separated out all the materials by type. So the plastic is not a recyclable kind. The rubber obviously is difficult to recycle. We have a bag for glass and a bag for scrap things. So we're trying to recycle as much of it as we can. And also we recycled the oil that leaked out of the drive shaft. So, yeah.
How did you know this car was back here?
So really in the spring, I decided to procrastinate doing everything by mapping out the entirety of RIT's campus. So that is how I figured out that there was a car back there.
Oof. We're next. Are you ready? Do you want me to do it? Do you want to do it? Okay.
I think everybody should have to get up there.
Everybody knows. So we are the hydration station team. So essentially, Ian Cardinal, who's the sustainability manager at RIT, came up to me and said, you know, we have a really good project and we want to reduce plastic water bottle waste at RIT. And here's a cool way I think we can do it. And so essentially what we have is this cart right here that you can see. And we are putting together all the pieces to try to make a hydration station so that someone can be at an outdoor event, fill up their water bottle, and not have to, you know, go inside finding a vending machine or have someone even provide water bottles for everyone at that event. So it's filtered and it'll be ready for spring. So our big debut will be at RIT. There'll be big tents set up that will be labeled for everyone to know where to find the hydration station. We also hope to have this on the events website so that any club or any event really hosted RIT can run one of these out. And then we'll have FMS, Facilities Management Services crew, set up everything so that the event staff can figure out, you know, how to maintain it, but otherwise everything will be there ready for them to use. Yes.
So since we can't see it, what's your actual container made out of, and is it gonna be insulated?
Container.
Yeah, like for water.
Oh, it'll just be a hose.
Oh,
So same as like our drinking water comes from, you know, it just comes from the city. It's not even, the stuff we drink here isn't filtered, so we set it filtered.
What's your filtration system?
We have this thing, so it's a little filter. I think it lasts like 11,000 gallons. So we'll have a little flow meter to determine when it needs to be switched out.
So if there is no storage container, then you're just using a hose?
Yeah, so we're able to essentially rent hoses through facilities management. And so based on the description that is provided as to where the event will be located, they'll determine how many hoses or what length that they'll need.
Gotcha.
So they can provide pretty much any length hose necessary.
So you think you'll be able to like have almost all of RIT with hoses then?
Pretty much all of RIT. They were hoping that by this Friday, they can have some sort of map that shows the boundary line. But that is something we have to establish.
And can this be used indoors then?
So we want it to be used indoors, and some of the main things that we had to add to it so that it would be able to be used indoors, emergency shut-off valve in case it overflows, and just an easy way to remove the water. So we'll have the cart with a middle shelf to collect any water that does spill. So that way, you know, we'll be able to get rid of that in a sink or whatever. But we also have to just make sure we have the right process to make sure that there is proper cleanup so that, you know, no one slips or anything. Thank you.
Does anyone want to come up?
I
made you write that.
On your microphone or something.
Okay, that's fine. All right, we got a good group. Okay.
Yeah, all right, so yeah, this is our project. What it is, it's a solar installation in downtown Rochester for a homeless community called Peace Village. The purpose of this is for the members of Peace Village to be able to charge their phone. Currently, there is no charging station in their encampment. They have to go to a local coffee cafe or anything like that. So this will provide that service for them right in the camp. We have 6 USB ports for them to charge their phones, as well as one 2-prong outlet to charge other small devices like hearing aids and rechargeable batteries and things like that. How we do that is we have one solar panel that is rated for 160 watts, and that takes in solar radiation. You can see our electrical panel down here that now I'm hoping someone in the electrical team can take over for me. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
go
for the electronics layout, obviously you get your energy from the solar panel, and then you have the charge controller, which is kind of like, it controls pretty much most of the schematic, so, I guess energy enters in, and then it goes to the battery, and then the charge controller, like, determines how much is then drawn out from the battery back to the charge controller and then to the USB ports, so those are DC, direct current, and then we also threw in an inverter, so that you can charge like basically something that you can plug in. So one need that was like brought up to us is charging a hearing aid, and those aren't like, you can't just plug those into USB ports. So there's also an inverter to accommodate for anything that's just like a normal 2-prong plug. And then we also have a battery meter to show like the people there how much battery is left, so that they know if it's like getting low or drained. And there's also like a circuit breaker in case someone tries to plug in something that like draws way too much power.
yeah, so one of the big concerns, well, several big concerns that we had addressed, this is a pretty large project, was like Julia was saying, that nothing is being plugged in that would drain the battery too quickly. Another thing we had to consider was how big our foundation needs to be, because this is a 10-foot tall pole with a solar panel on top. So making sure that it's not going to fall, obviously, and then there's no like residual stresses or anything due to the wind force on it. So making sure that we had a big enough foundation for that was really critical. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Is this gonna be able to work year round since it's so cloudy in Rochester?
So that was our intention, that is our intention, I should say. With the battery size that we have selected, we should be able to charge it for 4 days?
3 days.
3 days. That's what we had. Okay. We should be able to charge it for 3 days without, charge 6 phones for 3 days without sunlight. And that's all coming from the battery then. And then, when there's a sunny day again, it would recharge the battery.
How did you calculate what you needed for the sun?
The amount of power that we need? Well, you should take this great class called Renewable Energy Systems. You might have heard of it, I don't know, you might be taking it. But yeah, so basically what we needed to do was figure out how much solar radiation we have coming in to Rochester at the orientation that we have it selected at, which is south right now. So calculating how much solar radiation we have coming in, and then figuring out how much power we need to charge whatever our load is. In this case, we wanted to charge 6 cell phones for 3 days. Figuring out how much that power is, making sure that we have a solar panel big enough to collect that much power, and then a battery big enough to store that much power, so that it can be used whenever the members of Peace Village need it.
Yeah, so it's actually, we size the battery for 20 phones being charged a day for 3 days. So it's kind of like a little bit of an overshot to be on the safe side. So realistically, if 20 people don't charge their phones a day.
And then we also have the other 2-prong outlet, so that would take more power than a cell phone, arguably, depending on what's being charged. So yeah, like you said, making sure that we're designing this as robust as possible, as well as large enough that the members have some flexibility in what they're able to do with it.
It's also not like the solar panels won't charge anything at all when it's cloudy. It's just gonna be less effective.
Yep, and then
So to kind of back it up and make it a little less technical, why a solar charging station? Why for a homeless community? Like, why do they need this? Whose idea was this?
yeah, so St. Joe's approached us looking for us to provide this service. St. Joe's is the organization that's running Peace Village right now, and as well as a committee on the city board. So they approached ESW asking for us to provide this service for them. You had another question why solar, is that?
No, why a phone charging station? Like, what's the need for this other, there's a lot of different services you could provide this community, so why this project?
Right, so this project, as well as Peace Village in general, the whole premise of it, the whole intention is to provide, these people with the autonomy to do what they want. A lot of them don't wanna go to, a shelter because they have to fill out different forms and they have to be accounted for and kind of fit into this box. So Peace Village allows them to have the flexibility and freedom to do what they want, and providing this service for them allows them more freedom to be able to use their phones. They don't have to go somewhere else to charge them. There is a demand for this service because a lot of them do have cell phones, but they just have no means of charging on their own. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
So I have at least 2 questions. One, the lock boxes, you have some information about it, but how exactly do they work and how are they secured?
So,
Like how do things plug in a way that is lockbox?
so basically what you're seeing here is part of Lockbox. Lockboxes are actually shown here.
Mhm.
So each one of these is like a place you can slide in your phone. There's a door that comes down and people would have to provide their own locks to lock their phone in, just for security. So if they're, they want to step away and do something, they feel more secure with their phone. So that's the idea of the lockbox, is you lock it in while it's charging.
Okay, so the ports and stuff are inside of the
Yes.
lockbox.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, it's coming directly out of, the pole goes all the way through. So it's coming directly out of the pole, so that all the customer would see when they reach into this box is just there's only the port to
All
plug
right,
into.
cool. Second off, parts can fail, especially if they're just sitting, like, especially with Rochester winters.
Yeah.
Is the electronics layout and such designed in such a way that makes it modular, easily replaceable if you need to?
Hopefully.
Okay.
No, we can give you a better answer than that. Yeah, that was what we spent a lot of our time and consideration looking into, specifically the battery, making sure that we picked one that isn't going to freeze in Rochester winter, like you said. And something that's gonna help with that is the housing that we have. It's, we're gonna have a battery, I believe, we'll have a battery that is able to sustain, those low temperatures without
Yeah.
draining.
Well, that's in part why we need such a large battery, because we're making it like realistically sustainable for like -10-ish
Mhm.
Fahrenheit. And that, so like basically how much you discharge it is, so we definitely took that into consideration.
And then also the circuit breaker, which you mentioned before, in case they do charge, drain the battery, that'll go off before that happens. In which case you just have to reset the breaker.
Yeah, reset the breaker.
Okay, this is getting so brown that I'm.
It's not a feat.
No, yeah, not electrical engineer, but it's good. Sarah,
So where is your whole like battery charge controller setup? Where is that actually set up?
yeah, so that's in the electrical housing underneath the cable.
Of those of you who are up here, what were your primary responsibilities in this project?
Mine changed. I was initially working in the lockbox and now I'm working on the foundation.
I was initially working on the interface that attached the solar panel to the pole, but now I'm working on making sure that the steel thread rods that we have won't break from wind and snow, because that's really serious if it does, and something that we want to be able to say, no, this won't happen.
Yeah, so I also originally was working on the lockbox design, and now I'm working with electronics.
What about you, Lynn?
I'm the project leader, so we're seeing all of this and yeah, so a lot of the entire team has broken off into little or smaller subgroups, I should say, so they're like getting specialized in that one area. And that's definitely coming through, which is good because there's areas that I'm not that familiar with that you guys are definitely more familiar with now. So put us all together and we have one functioning group. Yeah.
How do you get funding for a project like this? Like, this looks kind of expensive.
It is. Good observation. Yeah, so the solar panel was provided for us by Sauer Brunel. And a lot of the other materials, places like Lowe's and Home Depot were able to provide us some very substantial financial aid as CSW being a nonprofit. The electronics is being provided for us by St. Joe's. That's probably the largest expense, just for like the battery and inverter, charge controller, those get really expensive pretty quickly. And then the rest of it has been ESW. I'm not sure if there's something I'm missing though.
How does ESW go to?
Oh, rude.
You kind people. Is this a segue into? Oh, okay. Okay.
I would point out the corporate sponsorship and the
Okay.
get donations, but also.
I don't think anybody's gonna ask that.
Well, it'd be good to have
They
the
might,
answer when it does happen.
That's actually something
You
that-
can include it in your budget, like ESW funds X amount into projects. we
Yeah.
have a certain budget from RIT, but a lot of it's fundraising or getting from corporate sponsors, et cetera. So-
Also, we'll both be around, so you can always ask us.
Kira?
I'm not answering any questions.
Okay, I think you hand up first and then.
I'm sorry for all my questions.
You're good.
Just something like withstanding 60 miles per hour of wind is pretty good, but Rochester keeps getting windier. So I don't know if this is more a question or a suggestion, but something that maybe some kind of like an emergency housing thing that can, or some like partial disassembly that can happen if there's unknown windstorm that's coming, might be a good idea to have.
Is there anything you want to say?
So
I don't know if that's possible.
in terms of that, that's not really possible. The frame on top is securely bolted to the pole, which is then bolted to the concrete. That being said, the fastest recorded wind ever in Rochester is 89 miles an hour. So being able to withstand 60 miles an hour unless it's blowing
Let's
75 with snow on there and a tornado comes through, then I'm not so sure we might need to take it down.
Average wind speed
But-
here is what, 9?
The average on a windy day, this is including both the wind and not, is about 11 miles an hour.
I was just
So-
thinking of the windstorm like 2 years ago.
Yeah. The other thing is, this is probably gonna withstand more wind than a tent,
Yeah.
so there won't be anybody there if that does happen.
That's fair.
So,
Yeah, that's a really good point though. I'll be honest, we hadn't considered that. We were more focused on making sure that this was a, robust and permanent structure, that then taking it apart wasn't something that we considered yet, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm just curious how far along this, when do you think it's gonna be?
Yeah, so where we're at right now, we have the hole dug. That was done like weeks ago, so that's all set. But yeah,
Probably March, so that no one falls in.
very properly marked. Yeah,
Still
so
on a cone.
yeah. So what we're hoping to do is we're gonna have a design review at the end of this semester, and then another progress report / design review with the city board. What we're really waiting for is for them to approve the permit for us to go ahead with this project as a permanent structure on city land. So that's kind of the reason why we weren't able to finish it this semester. So with that extra time that we were given, we went through and did all these wind calculations and, consulting on the concrete and foundation and things like that, and making sure that everything we have is set and ready to go when that does happen. So at this point, next semester for sure, it'll be done as soon as the snow clears or we're able to get back out there.
Yeah, for practical purposes too, you can't pour concrete when it's too cold, so we do actually need to wait until it's warm to go too much further.
What will you do if you don't get the permits and the city says you can't have a permanent structure?
Cry.
Make it not permanent.
Yeah, that would,
technically, nothing in this world is permanent.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
What is that?
This world itself is impermanent, so can anything really be a permanent structure?
Yeah.
Can the city give out permits to build permanent structures when the city itself is not permanent?
Yeah, I mean, if that happens, we would have to change our design. The good thing about that would be that we've already done all the grunt work. We know how to run the calculations. So if the design changes, we change a couple things, but we have the layout already done. And we would have to change it so it's not a permanent structure. We haven't had that feeling from the city at all. They're all very excited about this project and waiting for it to go through. It's kind of just been a matter of like, all right, what permits need to happen? What do we need? How do we make that happen? So everyone's definitely on board with this and wants this to happen. So we're gonna go with that.
And worst comes to worst, we still have that other solar frame, and that's most certainly
True.
not permanent.
True. We have some backup designs.
I have
Yeah.
one more idea for you.
Yeah.
You could instead do like a 4-inch by like 10. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Yeah, this might have been not beat before, but that's.
Let me have my fun.
Any other questions?
Imagine just a tiny solar panel, right? That you can like put on top of your phone, and it does the like wireless charging of you like put it on and you put it outside and
You
it
just
charges your
make a
phone.
bunch of those and just give it to each member.
Yeah.
There are like the small travels.
Yeah, or like the ones that go in your car. We just get a bunch of those. I think we could just solve.
Give
the
up on your
issue.
project.
Yeah, forget this. We're just gonna get a bunch of little car chargers.
What's the next one?
No, I think you're quite much prepared.
Lainey, you survived my awful questions.
So,
How's it going?
Wonderful.
yeah, so this project is to build a irrigation system for a nonprofit community garden in Rochester. So what we're gonna do is there's gonna be gutters on that greenhouse in the picture right there. And one of the gutters will be channeled to a storage system similar to this, although not exactly like that. And then from there, the water will run to all the garden beds in the garden. Do you want to talk more about the design?
Sure, yeah. They've recently communicated a few differences, I guess, with like what they want the project to be. But originally we had some water coming from the front of the house on the property. And that was basically going from these gutters that we think would be like here and here. It was going under the driveway and up to the storage tanks. And then from half of the greenhouse to the storage tanks. And then the tanks for the household use are like behind the house. This is the house on the property. And so this would be used for like toilet water, any non-potable water uses. We'll be changing that a little bit and having more water go to the house tanks. They want more emphasis on the water for use in the house. But, yeah.
Let's get some of the design. We're also gonna make sure that, because it gets cold in the winter in Rochester, we're gonna make sure that the system doesn't freeze and explode or anything in the winter. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
How are you doing that? How are you making sure?
So we're gonna make sure that there's valves in the system so that any water can be drained away, so that there's nothing in there so the water won't freeze and expand and destroy it. Yeah, that's basically it.
So hoping someone else would raise their hands while I remember my question.
So
Why do they need the irrigation system? Like, what's the need for it?
right, so right now they spend quite a bit of money on just watering the crops in the garden beds in the community garden. So they want to replace that with a sustainable system that instead of using city water, because water is a limited resource, potable water is a limited resource, using the water that's already falling on the property instead, more sustainably.
So the Taproot was gonna be there too, and I think they have the table next to you, so.
Okay.
How are you planning on working your display with them? Have you talked?
I didn't know they were gonna be there. They didn't tell us about that.
So they're at least, they have two of their members that are gonna be panelists.
Okay,
So you can at least mention that if people wanna learn more, they can go to the panel.
okay, I'll make sure to do that.
But I'm pretty sure they also have a table, not passive, but if they are, they're gonna be next to you, so.
Okay,
Cool. Just so you have a wording
Good
that,
to know.
good to know,
you
yeah.
can use them as a reference too.
Awesome.
When and how are you planning to build this system?
Right, so I got that. So we're doing this project through the DSW's Build Day program. So we get a certain amount of funding from the DSW Global Headquarters. And then we're going to, in next May, like May 10th or so, we're going to actually in one day build the entire system. But that's the hope anyway. We'll see if we actually do that. Yeah, it's a pretty big system.
Just one suggestion, I would mention that the garden is the highest point in the property.
Yeah, it's the greenhouse is the garden actually slopes down from.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't really know that either until I.
So the tanks will be at the highest point.
Oh, that does make sense.
Yeah.
The house is the lowest point though, right?
That was the biggest challenge.
So how are you going to distribute the water throughout the garden from the tanks? Like, what's your plan for the network for that?
So basically the idea is to have some, small PVC pipes that, sort of branch out from the storage container here to all the different garden beds. And then each of the garden beds will have what's called a drip line or a soaker hose in them, which, just feeds the water to them, regularly. And then each garden bed will have a valve on it, so that you can open and close them individually in water beds as much as they need.
Do you know if this is gonna be able to provide the full amount of water for the garden, or are they still gonna have to supplement the city water?
In a normal year, this should replace all of the water use, from the, city. But it's possible that if there's a drought, that this wouldn't be enough, especially given that we're not using the water from the house to also water the garden. We hope to be able to replace all the water, yeah.
What's the capacity on your storage tank?
So this picture's a bit misleading. The storage by the greenhouse were made of 3 of those big square tanks. Each of those can hold about 300 gallons. So that's 900 gallons for the garden. And there's gonna be 2 additional storage tanks at the back of the house with 300 gallons each.
I was gonna think it would be cool, like the solar, like how they know how many days they'll be able to charge themselves. Like that would be cool if you could say like with our, yeah, like if your tank is at full capacity, we'll be able to completely like irrigate the garden for this many days.
And, yeah, off the top of my head, that would be
Okay.
cool idea. Like some sort of visuals.
What happens if it rains and the tanks are already at full capacity?
You want to take that?
So I think we would just, maybe have like a diversion
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, the water just flow out of the
Yeah,
tank.
cause it would go like into here and then basically be full, so maybe we just have like a spout.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, off the back, so
Right.
it would just flow down into the garden, which is, it's more water for the garden, no big deal.
Alright, so I'm Renee, I'm the project leader for the solar dehydrator that we're working on. So basically, we're making this passive solar dehydrator for Flower City Pickers, which is an organization that works with the Rochester Public Market, and they will actually go through the market and take all the leftover food or food donated from the vendors at the end of the day, and they'll redistribute it to homeless shelters or to farmers for composting, depending on how the quality of the food is. So they asked us to make a passive solar dehydrator that will work off the grid with no power to it, basically to take in extra food that they'll have. Say they get like a lot of apples one day, they can't distribute it all out fast enough, so they're asking us to make a dehydrator so that they can preserve some of it and use it as at a later date in time. So basically, this is our design idea right here. We will actually have what we currently have as our dehydrator at the expo on Friday. And so it's gonna have a door and shelves in it where the various foods will be on it to be dehydrated. There's also this section right here, which is going to be the main part of the dehydrator. So that's going to collect all the heat from the sun. It's going to be on an area. They actually have this big bus that they use at the market, where that's like their main headquarters. So they store everything in there. That will be on top of the bus to collect all the sun's heat to make it the solar dehydrator, and then that'll funnel into this that we have right here to actually dehydrate the food. We hope to have it done by the end of the semester. It's looking like we're there right now. It'll be almost completely done by the expo this Friday.
How did you plan for it to be food safe?
So we're using all metal. We're gonna try to keep it as clean as possible. Basically, we know it's not going to be 100% food safe, and because of that, they've actually reduced the project scope that we're working on now. That the food that they're using out of this is going to be for volunteers until we can get up to standards with food safe in order for it to be distributed to shelters.
Do you know how much food this is gonna be able to produce?
Not yet. We will know by the end of the week though.
This is probably a little outside of your scope too, but like different fruits take different amount of times. I'm assuming, I don't know how this works. Like,
Basically,
how do you keep track of that?
we're gonna do some testing, hopefully in the springtime with this, once we actually go to install it. It's a little bit difficult for us to do testing right now just because of the cloud cover and temperature outside. So this will probably only be working in the summertime, springtime, early fall as well.
In order to make it safe, are there like specific like tests that you need to do or requirements that need to be met?
Yeah, there's different requirements that need to be met by the state, I believe. So there's something online that says all the requirements for it, and we just can't meet that right now with the materials that we're using. We're using all donated materials currently.
And this is going on the bus, or is it self-standing?
We're not sure yet exactly where it's going to be. Hopefully it's going to be attached to the bus door. Flower City Pickers usually has the back of their door open during the day. So we're hoping to put hooks on it, kind of like over the door hooks that you'd have on a mirror, something like that, to actually hook it up over the bus. It'll be light enough to do that. So that would be a non-permanent solution. So at the end of the day, they can take it down and it's still small enough to fit inside of their bus for storage.
So you said that it was a passive system, but you mentioned like one of the features is a solar panel with fans.
Yeah, so basically that's the one part of it that's not completely passive. It will still be off the grid, just being powered by a small solar panel that we have. There's going to be a fan on the bottom part of it right there that's going to draw in the hot air that'll be coming in through this top part here, will be coming from this. So just to help pull the air through it, we're using a solar panel. I'm not too sure about it. My electrical guy's not here, but it is rated for the small fan that we have that will pull enough air through to keep the air flowing through it and dehydrate the food more evenly.
I'm sorry, this is a silly question. I'm not quite sure how the coil works in with the design.
Okay.
Like, can you explain that a little?
Yeah, so basically, this is going to be attached to the back of the bus on like the bus door. This part of it is going to be on top of the bus. So one of these, this is just like tubing, it's a tubing coil. So one of the ends of the tubing is going to attach to the top of that, and the fan on the bottom will be here. So the sun this will absorb the sun, heating up the air inside of the tubing. The fan here will start to create kind of like a vacuum, almost pulling the air through it. So our hope is that that fan will draw the hot air through the dehydrator, passing through mesh trays that we'll have in there with the food on it, dehydrating the food. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
How did you determine what size fan you need or?
I didn't do the calculations for
Okay.
it. One of my team members did, but yeah, he took a class on it and figured it out.
What is that food recovery hierarchy thing?
This is like, okay, so basically there's a lot of food waste in the world, in the United States. And so this is just how we can take leftover food and repurpose it. So of course, first off, you're gonna wanna be feeding people with that food. And then from there, you're gonna go and feed animals, and then from there, composting and last landfill. So basically, Flower City Pickers is focusing most on feeding people with the leftover food, and it's basically just repurposing the food for where it wants to go. And this is just kind of a guide to show that this is what you wanna do first, and this is what you wanna do last.
So Evan is also a panelist, so you can make a plug if they want to learn more about Flower City Pickers or what they're doing.
Oh, and I have to listen to Chris again. Adios.
Hello again, told you I'd be back. So this is the well database project for Water for South Sudan. They came to us and asked us to go through the database and make it functional. So that's what we've been doing. Do you want to talk about anything?
So,
Is it easier to start with the question?
Yeah.
What is the well database?
So the well database is it's information on every well that they have drilled in South Sudan. It's an organization that funds and enacts those projects. So we have things in there like, is there equal access to the well? How deep is the well? Where is the well? And we had to go through all the data, make sure that it was accurate, and then also make sure that it was accessible. For example, I think one of the wells said it was like in the middle of the Indian Ocean. We knew that that one was wrong. So, yeah.
How do you check if the information is correct?
So
a lot of it is actually just going through, and all we can really do is make sure it makes sense. So some of the data, so kind of as a big overview, what they're currently using is an Excel sheet to keep track of all their data. So if you're familiar with Excel, this can get rather out of hand quickly when you have a lot of people trying to access that information. So the issue what they had with Excel is basically anyone can go in there and put in any information they want. So for example, one of the challenges we had to overcome is that means all kinds of different ways to store latitude and longitude. So we had probably like 2 to 3 different ways people were going and putting the latitude and longitude. So how we verified this is we actually had to go through, sort it by the kind, make sure that each location was in South Sudan. And then what we did is converted it to a standard method that we then have in what we're using now, which is actually Access, which if you're familiar with it is Microsoft's tool for a more robust system that's closer to a traditional database rather than a Excel sheet.
I think another good example is we had to go through and make sure all the dates were in standard American format because a lot of them, well, Most of them were in American format, except for 2018, which was all European. So that we had the day, month, year, and that took us a while to figure out because we couldn't figure out why there were 32 months. Why are there 32 months?
Why are there 32 days?
That's one too
You
many.
know, that's a good point. There'll be one. Yeah, so it's been a ride. It's been a ride for us. But we think we're in a pretty good place now. We finally finished the database. We're now working on ways to forms for ways to put data into it, and reports for ways to take data out of it. Haven't quite gotten that part yet, but we're working on it. Yes.
Because you've had a lot of inconsistencies with the data that you were given, are you also going to have a way to edit data just in case?
So what we're going to do is right now we have it cleaned as much as we possibly can. We have some question points that we're going to go over with them. To kind of handle that moving forward is we're going to have our forms be very flexible. Let them put in whatever latitude and longitude format they want, but then in our database formatted to one consistent point. So it's a lot of working with the team now and talking about how they want the data to be formatted and smoothing out some points that we have kind of highlighted in the database.
Yeah, great.
The graph and the map, were those things that you made or that were provided to you?
Those are things that I made. So actually, I was telling Colin about this earlier. I cheated a little bit. Those are not directly from our database. I used Excel to make them, but they are from the data that is in our database. We're hoping to eventually get to the point where we can just automatically generate those sorts of graphs.
So is that line, that dotted line, that was their goal? Like that was something that they told you, or was that like where?
It's just a fit on the data. The dotted line?
Oh, it's just a fit.
It's just
Okay.
I just saw that it had a pattern.
Mhm. I was gonna say they hit their target really well.
Yeah, retroactively. Colin, do you have a question?
Are we allowed to show the well locations?
Yes. Nice.
Oh, good.
We all signed a confidentiality thing.
Yeah, I had to actually look over this whole poster before I gave it to her. So, yep. If we're not, it's Ashley's fault. Yes, Water for South Sudan will be at the banquet on Friday. Hannah.
Out of curiosity, why are the locations of the wells confidential?
Well, they're not.
Yes.
Colin was just making sure.
Oh, okay.
Like Colin said, we had to, every member of our team had to sign a confidentiality agreement before starting the project, just because it had people's names in it, and people's locations and stuff like that. They don't want us to just randomly give that information out to anyone. So,
I guess I was wondering what the confidential component was. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So is this database able to still be accessed by whoever, or is this now a closed database?
I mean, it's going to be on one computer. It's Ashley is the person we've been working with at Water for South Sudan, and this is sort of her focus to make this a viable system. So she'll be the one inputting the data.
So one, I'm sorry.
So right now they have like a paper form that they have everyone fill out. So once they go to the well, take a survey, it's a paper form. And kind of how we imagine this going is in that paper form was brought to the person who's actually acting.
Okay. And they put it in.
Yeah.
There isn't really any Wi-Fi in this area, so they have to rely on paper.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's like, I guess, the use of the database? What do you use it for?
So they use it for a number of different things. They keep track of information like the surveys. So they want to know like if a well broke down recently and why it broke down so that they have better understanding of how to maintain it moving forward. So they might say like, hey, well broke down in 2014 for this reason. We want to make sure that it's still okay. So they keep track of that information. Another big thing they actually keep track of, and they're using this to get more support and more funding, is they also look at information like how many more girls can go to school now because they don't have to go out looking for water because there's a well nearby. So they also use this information to get more funding. So they can go to possible sponsors and say, hey, this is the positive impact we've had, and they use the database as proof. So those are a couple of main reasons. They also use it to keep track of where they can get parts in that location for the well. So this well broke down, here's the nearest location to get the parts to fix it. So it's used for most aspects of their work.
Yeah, so we were very happy to be able to help this aspect because it's a very big effect.
Of all of your major challenges, what was the biggest challenge?
I think
Data is not an answer. Data was our project. So let's see. I'd say probably the biggest conceptual hurdle we had to overcome was the fact that many of our fields were time dependent. So we had to figure out how to make sure that data didn't get overwritten when you add a new point and stuff. So we spent very many weeks trying to figure out how to do that. We did.
So for example, South Sudan is very volatile in making state lines. So they're talking about how a state can change very rapidly. And they said it's something crazy. They went from 13 to
56.
Yeah, 56 states recently. So they're trying to keep track of location of a well. So they have the latitude and longitude, but when they want to give a village or something like that, it becomes increasingly difficult. And that changes over time pretty rapidly.
I'm pretty sure South Sudan is still the newest country on Earth. So you can imagine there's some political stuff going on. Okay.
So we suck at time management, and it's 1957. And I really want the picture, so maybe we could play it next week, because we're doing a potluck next week, right? Next week's the last week, right? That was a meeting. Don't we usually do a little thing? Well, what's our plan for next week?
So
Yeah.
very unofficially, I am not an e-board member or part of VSW right now, but there's going to be a gathering on Friday after the banquet. So you can, I'll send that out. But that's not part of this at all.
I don't think we have time for Fiction Agri. It doesn't sound as well as it looked.
It can't be activity.
Yeah.
I'm doing a spell board.
Where is it? Oh, there we go. Nice.
So
Next week?
Next week.
Next
Okay.
week?
Really
Okay,
quick,
save your
can
piece of
we-
paper for next week.
Can we run the video real quick?
Oh,
For thinking?
yeah.
oh my god.
Go to eswrt.com/pat. Look at that.
I just have this up.
And then click on the.
Nope, the other one.
Oh my god.
Or you can scroll down and yeah, do that.
I don't know where my mouse is. Alright.
Hit space.
Sorry, that was a disaster.
Here, everybody gather around. I'm gonna gather around.
This year, many of our members are working on economic development in Fort Meade. So we are fundraising for a soup kitchen program called En Aquasol. And to tell you more about it is one of the program's founders, Sarah Redwood.
So my name is Sarah Brownell, and I was one of the founders of the program. So Panic Croissant is Apologies. Most of the donations
travail, m'a acheté, j'ai fini pour faire marcher. Et communauté a remis ça tout en guerre parce que conseil là, ouais, dehors, des poissons, voilà, des gars qui ont cette pêche. Est-ce que c'est ce poisson qu'on va avoir là? Sinon, on va avoir cette poisson, on va avoir qualité manger, un petit, peut-être ça pour garder son bon bagage. Et pour nous, tout à l'heure, de loin, pour tu prends normalement nous-mêmes, ça fait des crises, on toujours prier pour ça, programme-là, et puis tu vas prolonger plus touche.
Every dollar you donate will go to supporting those in the Board community. We appreciate your support and thank you.
So if you couldn't tell based on the closed captions, we're trying to help fundraise for this soup kitchen program in Haiti. Please check that out if you have any interest.